Hey everybody, how's it going? So this is the last chapter for the Wildered quest. So it's been a long journey. It's been nice being with you guys, and well, I guess we'll just continue reading this last chapter, and we'll see where the next series takes us. Garrick Wildspeaker's mother had died when he was young. She'd been a retired soldier. Whatever she'd survived, she hadn't shared with her young son. Scars had been with her always, his father often told him, and she had worn them with weary fortitude. Garrick didn't recall her well. He liked to think she would have had something of the stern discipline and firm compassion of Queen Linden. The queen set down the sword as if it were no more valuable than a stick. She turned all the way around, shading her eyes. Her voice was composed, but her hands were trembling. Where did they go? I know they were teaching themselves to coordinate their magic to fight with, but I didn't know they could use it to vanish. The High King got to his feet and picked up the sword. Such a blessed weapon should not be cast carelessly upon the ground. It's just a sword, Kenrith, she snapped. Nothing when compared to our children. It's no wonder they're angry. We should have told them long before this. But we didn't, he said in the tone of a reasonable man who wants you to see how reasonable he is being. Impressive bit of magic. You should be proud of them. I'm always proud of them, but right now, I'm really worried. He shook his head with a rueful smile. If they've taught themselves to do that, then I'm sure they'll be back the moment Rowan cools down. Her temper is as volatile as yours. I suppose I deserve that. Linden sighed and did not answer. It was an unusual magic like the likes of which I've never seen before, said the lore mage. She sniffed the air, her nose twitching. Never smelled anything like it either. Strange. You smell an ember? Linden's eyes flared, and she set hands on hips. You burned down that cursed cottage at last, so yes, I smell the embers. And I'm glad to see everything that cursed witch built in ruins. I'm not sorry. But after the flood of words, her brow wrinkled as she glared at the glade, still empty of the two young people. Not the embers from the burnt cottage. Lore Mage began to walk in a widening spiral, pausing to sniff every few steps. Garrick knew the Lore Mage would find nothing. He listened to the forest, to the dawning day, to the rustling of creatures waking up, to the way a wild magic was woven through the heart of this plain, and how the two sides who battled over it were opposing, but also intertwined, impossible to untangle one from the other. The crows he called were dispersing into the wild. Oko's trail, the flavor and color of his planeswalking still lingered. The Fae had no idea how easily Garrick could follow him and snuff out his ugly little life. And yet, as much as Garrick wanted to wring Oko's neck, or maybe just cut off his head with one satisfying blow, his mind was no longer ridden by the curse. The rot did not drive him, so he didn't follow Oko. He waited, caught by the parents' concern because it reminded him so painfully of his own beloved father. The High King picked up the arrow, studied its deadly obsidian point, and pensively touched the still damp blood that blotted his tabard. Yet when Alginus Kenrith let out a sharp exhale, Garrick did not see a man contemplating his unexpected reprieve from death. He saw an anxious father who feared that, after all, he had not ever truly protected his children. The High King looked straight at Garrick with the astute instinct of a quick-witted warrior. You. Where do you think they've gone? You were with them, weren't you? I was. We followed the hunt. He thought of Will and the cauldron, of Queen Ayara's knowing smile, and her air of mysterious attraction. He had guessed, but she hadn't known for sure, and he wasn't about to give up his own secrets. We've not been introduced. I'm Alginus Kenrith. You are the High King, said Garrick. I am, but right now, I'm mostly concerned about being Will and Rowan's father. Not to mention Eric and that troublemaker Hazel, he added with a smile of such sweet fatherly affection that Garrick felt a sting in his own eyes, remembering what his own father had sacrificed to save his son. He hadn't cried since he was a boy, and he wasn't sure he wanted to cry now, but the tears felt earned and pure. Do you have any idea of where the twins might have gone? I think they've done what most young people do and set off on a quest of their own making, said Queen Linden, with an impatient shake of her head. I can't help but worry, but then I remember I left home the day I turned 18. You did too, Kenrith. Or so you always told me. I hope you weren't lying about that to impress me. He laughed suggestively, and she blushed a little. No, I couldn't wait to get out of that boring town. Those two aren't any different from us, are they, my love? They set off into the middle of a magical storm at wintertide because they were so desperate to find you. So I wouldn't call our youthful situations quite the same. I'm afraid we have to allow them to live their lives now according to their wishes and not ours. They are free to quest, however much I might wish they would stay home, where I can keep an eye on them. To be honest with you, Kenrith. When were we ever not? He said wryly. I don't blame them for being angry. You should have been honest with them. He leaned over the well and looked down. Curious, Garrick stepped up beside her. The skeleton, complete with its skull, still lay at the bottom of the dry shaft, although no smoky tendrils lingered. Elwyn, said Linden, turning back. How does one bury a witch to make sure she stays dead? Oh, she's dead all right. The smoke was her soul. It's gone. As for the bones, lie will do. It will make quite an interesting experiment, don't you think? The lore mage gave up her tracking and peered into the well, muttering under her breath about how many parts of this substance and how many of that, and how quickly bones might dissolve. The forest beckoned, a beautiful wilderness where people did not chatter on about what could not be changed. The queen took the hand of the High King. We should go home, Kenrith. Let Castle Ardenvale know you are restored to the realm. Let the twins do what they need to do. They'll come home when they're ready. The High King sighed again. But how? And when? And what if... The Wilds is a dangerous place. I should have... Oh, they're so young, Linden. Stronger and smarter than I thought they would be, remarked the lore mage, her voice echoing weirdly from where she leaned over the well. Though that Lich Knight did get Titus. I don't know what became of Caddo and Cerise. The portal by the obelisks will have closed last night and won't open again for a year. But on the other hand, we are a very long way from the Heart Realm now. Of course, there must be some kind of magic that allows the hunt to cover so much ground in a single night. We're closer to Castle Ardenvale, not so far to fly. And in fact, you could easily have a Griffin Knight fly over this glade every day in case the twins return here. But for all we know, their spell has taken them home already. That could make the most sense. Wouldn't that be a great trick for questing night? You haven't changed at all, Elwyn, said Kenrith. I should hope not. And what happened to you, big man? Garruk? Is that your name? Will said you were an unwilling servant of the impostor. I minded to think Will was right about you, but something bigger than that's changed about you. That curse inflicting you looked terribly strong, and it's gone now. Just plain gone. She cocked her head to one side, rather as a crested eagle might, citing a movement that could be prey. Garruk thought of Will Kenrith being dragged down into the river's depths by Garruk's weight, refusing to let go. Those two young ones had just been catapulted across the multiverse. They'd have no idea what had happened, or where they were, or what it all meant. I'm free of the curse, he said, figuring the lore mage would believe he referred to Oko's spell. He didn't know about the Chain Veil, or Innistrad, or the multiverse, and she never would. I'm free to go where I wish. So I make a pledge to you, Alginus Kenrith and Lyndon Kenrith. I'll track them, make sure they're safe. Now why would you do that? Asked the High King with a glint of suspicion, sizing him up, gauging his chances for defeating Mysterious Hunter, having the honesty to admit he would come up short. Lyndon examined Garruk with her clear eyes and her honest heart, waiting for his answer. They helped me. I will help them. He learned to be patient. Good hunters had to be. They asked him a few more questions, as cautious parents naturally would. The lore mage fussed about possible means to haul in a fly. The queen blew a horn, and the Griffin Knights returned and with genuine joy greeted their lost and now restored king. While they chattered and celebrated, Garruk walked amid the griffins, admiring their magnificence, ferocity, and intelligence. Eventually, when it became clear Will and Rowan would return no time soon, the entourage made ready to leave. And few even complimented Garruk on his courageous willingness to quest alone after the reckless twins. These Ardenvale folk talked constantly of groups and togetherness. Garruk raised a hand in a polite farewell as they flew away, back to their castle, and their towns and villages. It always puzzled him when city people spoke of the frightening solitude of uninhabited spaces. He couldn't see that the forest teemed with life. In the wilderness, he was never alone. He'd have been content to explore these wilds. He could smell a few deadly monsters worth hunting. But right now, he had a debt to pay. He reached out and caught the trail of the twinned spark melded of ice and lightning. A crow cawed in a nearby tree, as if to bid him farewell. He planeswalked away, leaving the world behind.